Ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news as the Phoenix Suns have finally done it and made a massive move, taking away Bradley Beal and buying out his contract for the next 2 seasons, in which they will now have an open roster spot, which Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory will utilize to bring in some new culture and identity pieces for Jordan Ott's system, similar to how they have done during the draft process. So we're going to dive in and explore the latest update revolving around this Suns team surrounding Bradley Beal, in which he is going to be going to the Los Angeles Clippers, and how that's going to affect the Phoenix Suns. All more on this episode of Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been fantastic showing your love and support. And I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this video here on the channel, and it has finally come through after the long-awaited last couple of weeks of hearing rumblings and rumors surrounding Bradley Beal. It has been now official, as he is going to be bought out from the Phoenix Suns. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's explore all the latest news surrounding around this topic. Make sure to grab your snack and let's get into it. As like I mentioned in the introduction, and like I've said multiple times here on this channel already, and we're only just a minute in, as it's finally happened, and a lot of you are going to be very, very ecstatic that this move did come into play. But like I mentioned, 3-time NBA All-Star Bradley Beal is expected to get a contract buyout with the Phoenix Suns and plans to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers on a 2-year, $11 million deal with a player option after following waivers, reported by Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports. And this is a day that a lot of Phoenix Suns fans have been waiting for, after John Gambadoro kind of let us know at the beginning of the offseason, when the playoffs were still going on, that Bradley Beal would not be on this roster going into next season. He called that like about 3 months ago, basically saying he will not be here. I tell you right now, Bradley Beal will not be on this roster. And he was right, as they try to figure out every which way possible to try to do a trade at the deadline last year, or even in this offseason trying to do trades. But ultimately, as you can see around the league, contracts like Damian Lillard, Jordan Clarkson, and all these bigger contracts that cannot be traded with the new CBA and all these restrictions have just had to be buyouts. And that's what the case was going to be for Bradley Beal and for the Suns, to kind of get out of this little area that they screwed themselves over with picking on a contract in Bradley Beal. And if we want to dive in and look at some more updates, we can see now the finances with the Phoenix Suns, that they've decided to waive and stretch Bradley Beal's contract that they need to do. It has to be decided by August 31st. They have not made that decision yet to waive and stretch his money. They have just made it known that they are going to be buying out his contract. But with this being said, if they do stretch and waive his money, the Suns will not only be underneath the luxury tax, but also the first and second aprons, which gives them that flexibility that I've mentioned here on this channel multiple times, to aggregate salaries in trades, to have the full non-tax mid-level exception out in free agency, and also be able to attach cash in trades. And that is going to be a big difference maker for this team, as we still know, even with Bradley Beal now being removed from this roster and them still having another roster spot open, that this team is still filled of shooting guards and centers. And we want to look at this graphic here from my guy Yossi Goslin on the third apron. We can see that the Phoenix Suns are saving a bunch of money comparative with Bradley Beal being off this roster, but also they still have some holes to fill here on the bench core and trying to find out some great replacements, because they do have, like I mentioned, extra center room, not as many wings, still need another point guard. And that's something that I could see them addressing with via trades of using contracts like a Grayson Allen, a Royce O'Neal, a Nick Richards, maybe even combining some of those salaries together. And like he stated here, once again, the Suns will now be underneath the second apron and underneath the first apron, which takes away all those restrictions of, having to get back the same amount of salary in a trade back. Now the Suns can take more salary back in trades. They are underneath the luxury tax. They have a lot of flexibility in not the trademark, also the trade market, but in the free agent market, where they now have the non-tax mid-level exception, so they can offer that, or even offer parts of that to players to kind of bring in two guys filling in that $14 million contract that could, I guess, play significant roles for this team. Also, even though they are going to have a cap hold now onto their roster for the next couple of seasons, with the salary cap continuing to rise and continuing to go up, I do not believe it's going to be a big X factor for this Suns team in the future. It's like I mentioned, you view it as a percentage, and even though the tax, I mean, the dead cap might be around like $19 million reported by my guy John Voita from what I saw the latest when trying to get images here, it does scream to me that once the salary keeps going up and keeps going up and keeps going up, that $19 million is just not going to matter as much. It's going to be a smaller percentage, which is just going to help the Phoenix Suns out, because then they're still going to be able to get more guys signed to this roster and be able to change things here for those next couple of seasons. So like I mentioned, Bradley Beal is now gone from this Phoenix Suns team, but there's a lot to kind of keep an eye on out there within the Phoenix Suns realm, because there's still more moves that are going to be coming. And Gerald Bourguet let us know that, like I mentioned earlier, that the Suns have into the end of August to officially waive and stretch Bradley Beal's contract. According to multiple sources, that's 99% most likely to be their path, with Beal giving up $13.82 million in his contract. As we all know, with the Suns already having E.J. Liddell and Nasir Little being bought out and having to waive and stretch their contracts last season, they cannot fully buy out Bradley Beal's contract for the remaining seasons, so Beal had to forfeit some of that money. A majority of that he will be making back within the Los Angeles Clippers here, as like I mentioned, they're going to be paying him roughly $11 million with a player option, so only having to, forfeit really $2 million for a player in Bradley Beal is not the worst, especially if he still gets to stay on the West Coast, still gets to stay in a nice area and with his family, and get to live now in LA, where he's going to be going to the Clippers, which have a really good squad now, replacing him, honestly, with Norman Powell and bringing in John Collins and Brook Lopez for their front court depth. Like I said, though, with this Suns team, this is something we all kind of expected with this squad, and we'll have to keep our eyes out on what they do next, as there's going to be, I think, a little bit more coming else down on this pipeline and what could be on the horizon. Well, that's what we're going to discuss now. So let me know your thoughts on the Bradley Beal situation. Like I personally think, in my honest opinion, I was truly 50-50. I could see the positives of waiving him. I could see the negatives of waiving him. I could see the positives of keeping him on this roster. I could also see the negatives of keeping him on this roster. Ultimately, I was in the camp of waiving and stretching, because once again, this salary cap figure, a lot of people will say, oh, well, the Suns didn't necessarily need to waive Bradley Beal because they were going to be bad anyways. Could have helped him out down the line. Could have waived him next year. Could have made it a little bit of a less of a burden for the salary cap. But ultimately, I don't think that a Grayson level type of salary size contract is really going to affect this Suns team, because they have all these younger guys and youth prospects, right? We already see them with all their rookie scale deals, and I think they're going to start investing into those and trying to find out those type of players of potential. So they don't necessarily need a $17-18 million contract on the books. They're not really going to be competing or, trying to be one of those top teams. And then after these next 2 or 3 seasons, once, even though you're still paying it down the line in 2027, 2028, that percentage is not going to be as detrimental, I think, in my opinion, because the percentage is going to keep continuing to go down. Like I meant, the money's going to continue to go down because the percentage of the adding of the salary cap is going to continue to rise, and that's going to make it look like a smaller number down the line for the Phoenix Suns. I also could see coming into play for this team, like I mentioned, maybe potential Grayson Allen trades, because they still have a logjam at that shooting guard position. Maybe they look and try to move off of Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards, something like that, aggregating those salaries together. Maybe even taking a Royce and Grayson, taking that $27 million, going and getting another, I guess, bigger salary to bring onto this team, and then still having more flexibility down the line, because they still have another open roster spot and can go bring in a guy that they believe in could be like another Colin Gillespie, another untapped potential piece of rookie guy, someone that is trying to fight for a spot in the league. Ultimately, in my opinion, it gives the Suns effortless potentialities throughout the rest of this free agency, which I think is really great, because with them being in the second apron before this move and, being kind of stuck in the Western Conference, even record-wise and roster construction-wise, with not really having any way to add people, I think this gives the Phoenix Suns a little bit more breathing room going into next season. And with a team that's kind of, not expected to be that great, that gives you more flexibility going on this season to take bad contracts, to get, some more draft picks, to then ultimately reshuffle and reshake your roster going into the following season. And then that's when I think we'll see the Phoenix Suns trying to really implement this blueprint here going into the 2027 season. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'm excited to see what the Phoenix Suns can do. Like I mentioned, there are some positives to waiving Bradley Beal. There are some negatives to waiving Bradley Beal. But ultimately, I do think that the negatives are not going to outweigh the positives in this situation. And I have to say that I think the Suns are going to be heading in the right direction soon. So let me know your thoughts, like I said, down below in the comment section, what you guys ultimately think on the Phoenix Suns and all this news. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone.